Hello, my name is Dave Stokely, and I would like to share with you what God has done in my life, my testimony, my journey from atheism, unbelief, to today being head over heels in love with Jesus. I'm hopeful that this may bless some of you, give you hope maybe for a family member who is an unbeliever. I'll start in my childhood. The home I grew up in, my mother and father, each were battling problems of their own. My mother had significant issues with depression and anxiety. She was hospitalized numbers of times for depression. She had agoraphobia. She couldn't go outside and be around people without having panic attacks. I remember numbers of times school functions or sporting events, my mom would have to leave because of the overwhelming anxiety and panic that beset her. My father was an alcoholic, fully involved in his addiction during our growing up years. He was emotionally detached, unavailable to us. I never had a close relationship, close loving relationship with my father. But all in all, I would say, I would consider my childhood a happy childhood. I grew up in a wonderful area. We were near forests and fields and places. I'm a nature photographer today. I had a love of nature, and I had great friends that we would explore, the natural places surrounding us. And had a great time. Lived on our bicycles. We'd take off first thing in the morning and we'd be gone, biking around, going to the woods, going to the fields, all day long. Come home for lunch for a little bit, head back out. But that being said, my home was filled with arguing and tension. Stress, my mom and dad were just at each other, most of the time that I remember us growing up. Wasn't a warm, loving, light-filled home. And I saw my friends in the neighborhood, they would, pile into church, many of them, pile into church on Sunday mornings, dressed up in their Sunday best, and go to church and have a warm, loving home life. And I wanted that. So I attended church for a number of years with them. But going to church by myself like that and coming home, that happiness that my friends had never followed me home. So I became more and more disillusioned and actually began blaming God for not helping, my tense home life. Turned my back on him. By the time I was in my late teens, I was professing myself to be an atheist, a non-believer, evangelical atheist. I love talking religion with people, with Christians. When I was 35 years old, I met a woman who was a believer, and she and I began a relationship, ended up getting married, and she prayed for me for 10 years. I began having prayed for me to a God that I was convinced did not exist, thought her foolish, laying there at night saying her prayers. I was the fool, as it turns out. But 1999, I started having significant health problems. I was just exhausted. I work a desk job, and I would get home from work just exhausted. I couldn't do anything. I would lay down Saturday afternoon, take a nap at noon, 1 o'clock, and I'd be in bed 6 or 7 hours sleeping, right? Not just a short little nap. I was just overwhelmed with fatigue. Went to my family physician in December of 1999, told him of this extreme fatigue that I was experiencing. He did a health lifestyle inventory with me, went through questionnaires, on, how did I drink, smoke, family history of cancer, heart disease, my activities, went through all these things. And at one point in this inventory, he asked me what my religious beliefs were. And I told him I was an unbeliever, I was an atheist. His next question, this is just my family physician. We're not close in any way. But his next question was, well, what is your relationship with your father like? And I told him we weren't close at all, that he was an alcoholic at this time. This is years later, but during my youth, he was an alcoholic, and we weren't close at all. And he said his next comment was, well, it's difficult to have a good relationship with your heavenly Father if you don't have one with your earthly one. That statement was like somebody had taken a cup of cold water and just thrown it in my face. It shocked me, it startled me. Maybe opened up a whole new perspective on things. I attribute that moment, that in the doctor's office, to the first crack in the shell of my unbelief. We continued on. I saw a cardiologist, did some tests. Turns out I had a leaky aorta valve. My heart was severe to moderate leakage and required surgery. I weighed, my cardiologist wanted to do the surgery at the local hospital, which would have meant replacing my valve with a pig valve or a mechanical valve. I did some research online and found that there was a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Cosgrove, who was repairing bicuspid aorta valves. My valve only had 2 flaps. A normal valve has 3 flaps. So this was a birth defect in my heart. And he was repairing them rather than taking them out and replacing it. So I was really wrestling because I could have the surgery done locally in a couple of weeks. The surgery at Cleveland was going to be out several months. So it was a Saturday night. I remember, went to bed, had a dream that I should go to Cleveland Clinic. I don't know. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So who's this talking to me in my dream? I don't know. But the voice in my dream said I should go to Cleveland Clinic. So Monday comes. My sister calls me at work and tells me that she's seen a news story about a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Cosgrove, who's doing repairs on aorta valves. A friend at work, likewise, saw the same story and told me the same thing. So between the 3 of them, I took that as a confirmation that I should go to Cleveland for my surgery. So in surgery, I referred myself to Cleveland. I was a good candidate for the repair surgery. My surgery was set up for the middle of June. This was February. This is the middle of February. So March, April, May, June. So 4 months away. you don't understand, I didn't understand how much stress something like this causes in you. A lady called from Cleveland Clinic like the 1st of May and asked if I would mind if they moved my surgery up about 3 weeks, from the middle of June back to the last week of May, May 24th. I just began weeping into the phone, telling her, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was so surprising, that my emotional reaction to moving, that I hadn't understood how much stress, I was under in this. So anyway, May 24th was a Monday. I was the captain of a pool team. The Wednesday before my surgery, my father-in-law and I went to the American Legion on a Wednesday night, and we were playing pool. We were going to shoot some pool. And so we're shooting. It's a quiet evening in the American Legion, not many people there, not much going on. So we're shooting pool. And this young boy, 11, 12-year-old boy, I don't know, 10, 11 years, I'm not sure how old, maybe 10, 11 years old, came and he puts his quarter up on the table. And that's what, if you've never played bar pool, that's what you do. Person, puts a quarter up, then they get to play the winner of the current game. So this went on for an hour or so, this young boy and my father-in-law and myself, shooting pool back and forth. And during this time, my father-in-law and I are talking about my upcoming surgery on this following Monday. And this boy hears us talking. So Friday night at the Legion, the same Legion, my wife's family is going to have a get-together, kind of a send-off to, wish me well on my surgery. So we come Friday night, it's fish fry. So we go the Friday night, we scooch a couple tables together, and this young boy's there. And he comes up and he's holding something behind his back, and he takes it around and he hands it to me. And it's a wooden plaque, the Chicago Bulls championship plaque. It's got a picture of the team with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls. I'm not sure, I can't remember what year, but one of their championship seasons. And he hands it to me. And he said that this is his good luck plaque, that he had surgery, and he put this plaque on his bedside, by him, and it brought him luck. And he wanted me to have it to take to Cleveland with me. My heart was touched. I mean, it just touched me greatly. So Monday, the 24th of May comes around. My good buddy, who had been on my pool team, best player on my team, had quit the team a month or two before. He had numerous physical problems, and drinking was killing him. And he had to quit, and he began going to church. So he told me before my surgery that this little church in Elkhart was praying for me. Well, I didn't understand that. I don't understand why people pray for somebody they don't have any knowledge of, no relationship with. But I respected that. Had my surgery. Everything turned out wonderfully. Cleveland Clinic's an amazing place. I mean, you can't, there's nothing too good for me to say about Cleveland Clinic and the care I received there. I had the surgery. I've got a 4-inch incision at the top of my chest. I have to take a baby aspirin a day, but they tell me even recently that my valve's doing good still. I shouldn't have to have anything done again to my heart. After we got back, to our home after Cleveland, my buddy, the same one who said the church was praying for me, he and his mother, Butch, and his mom, Helen, asked Jackie and I, my wife, and I if we'd like to go to church on Sunday, first Sunday in June of 2000. And I said yes. I just wanted to thank the church for their prayers. I didn't. That was the only reason I was going to church. I'd been to lots of churches as a youth. I mean, I'd gone to a Baptist church, a Nazarene church, a Methodist church, a Presbyterian church, a Christ Scientist church, Unitarian Universalist church. I mean, I'd been to numbers of churches, so I thought I knew what to expect, but I'd never been to a Spirit-filled Pentecostal, apostolic Pentecostal church. I was totally unprepared for what I found there. The worship was so fervent, so passionate. I mean, Jackie and I, we sat on the left side, kind of back, with Butch and his mom and some other family members back there. And a couple rows ahead of us, to the right, was an old man. And I say old man, but really, I mean, he's probably not much older than me now, but to me, I was 45 years old, he was an old man. And I saw this old man, and he was just passionately, fervently raising his hands and worshiping God, and just totally wrapped up in the worship service. And I thought to myself, to me, it was apparent, I mean, it turned out later to be true, this man had been in church his whole life. So he's 75 years old, something like that, and he's been in church since he was 65, or 65 years maybe. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, well, how many tens of thousands of songs has this guy sung in 50, 60 years? Why isn't he on the back row taking a little nap, you know? How is it that he is still so passionate? I was fascinated by him, by his worship. And it became obvious to me that these weren't songs he was singing. This was true worship. He was telling his Creator, who he was head over heels in love with, how much he loved him, how much he needed him, how much he praised him and worshiped him. That old man's worship created hunger in me. I wanted what that old man had. At the end of the service, I asked Jackie, I think we could come back for tonight's service. They had a morning Sunday school service and an evening worship service. And I think her jaw about dropped. I mean, she'd been praying for me for 10 years, never seen any movement from me spiritually, and now I'm wanting to go to church, to come back to church, not just to say thank you, but I was wanting to come back. I'm going to pause here, see what the time looks like on my chip, my battery level, etc. So I'm going to pause here and I'll resume in a minute. So I'm resuming my testimony. I left off, Jackie and I had just attended a church service just for me to say thank you to the church for praying for me during my recent heart surgery. And I had asked Jackie if she would like to go back to the evening's worship service. And I'm sure, I mean, she was just shocked and surprised as anything about that. But we did. We went back. And from that point forward, every time the church doors were open, you know, we had a Thursday midweek Bible study, you know, Saturday morning Sunday school, Saturday evening worship service. Whenever the church doors were open, Jackie and I were there. It continued that way for, I think, about 3 weeks. So one Thursday evening, after the midweek Bible study at the altar call, I went down to the front, and the pastor was there praying with people and such, and I told the pastor, Mark Johnson, I told him that I was an atheist. I wanted to believe, but belief is like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. There's really no midpoint to belief. You either believe or you don't believe. There's not much in between. And I didn't believe, but I wanted to. I wanted to believe. His words to me, his advice to me was, he said, and I believe these were wonderful words. He said, well, you've done the right thing. You've come to God. You've opened your heart. What for you is a mountain, for God is a molehill. I have goosebumps. These words. I've told my testimony. I don't know. I was a chaplain in the local jail for 18 years. I've given my testimony, I don't know, hundreds of times at least, you know. That was a Thursday night. I hadn't been back to the American Legion. I had had some physical difficulties. I was on my way, Jackie and I were on our way to my daughter's graduation, over in another city. We stopped at a McDonald's to get a drink to take with us, and I was standing in line at McDonald's one moment, and the next moment I'm laying on my back with a real incredible headache, and there's like 6 people staring down at me. I passed out in line at McDonald's, and an ambulance came, took me to the local hospital. I was there for 2 or 3 days. It wasn't anything major. I'd just been trying to do too much too soon. Your body, even minimally invasive surgeries at Cleveland Clinic, your body doesn't like to be messed with like that. So anyway, I passed out. There wasn't any complication or anything, but anyway. So I hadn't been back to the American Legion. So that was Thursday night. I went down to the altar and talked to Pastor. Friday night, fish fry night again, we go to the American Legion, and we walk in the room. It's kind of early, again, 6 o'clock, and across the room, I see this young boy who had given me the plaque, and he runs across the room up to me and said, Dave, I'm so glad you're here. How'd your surgery go? I've been wondering how things were going, and I missed you and everything. I had the plaque with me, and I handed it to him, and I told him that the surgery went wonderfully well, and that I thanked him for the plaque. Very appreciative of the plaque. So again, we're going to be, a number of family members come, so we get a couple tables and we scooch them together. We're sitting there and chatting, and I don't know, a few minutes later, I feel someone sitting next to me, and I look next to me, and there's this boy, same boy that gave me the plaque, and I look over and hey, man, and he sits there, and we talk for a minute or two, and this young girl comes up, apparently his boss. He had been putting together to-go styrofoam containers with napkin and plastic silverware and salt and pepper and tartar sauce for the carry-out for the fish fry. He had been helping out doing that, and she comes up to him. She puts her hands on her. She says, Brandon, what are you doing? You can't be sitting here. You got to be over here. Get over here and help, blah, blah, blah. And he looks up at her and he says, I quit. I ain't doing it no more. And she stomps off in a huff across the room. And he turns to me and he looks and he says, how would she feel if her best friend were here and she couldn't talk to him? I played pool with him for a couple hours, probably close to a month before, and I'm his best friend. And it dawns on me, I understand what's going on. For years, I looked to any man who would pay me attention as a father figure. For years, I would latch on to any man that paid me attention. I craved, a boy needs a father. I knew what was going on with Brandon. I paid him little attention. He didn't have a dad. He was latching on to me. It touched my heart, touched my heart, touched my heart. I'm a writer. I write, I don't know, hundreds of pages a year between Facebook and my blog, and I love to write. So, at that time, I was involved in a water gardening forum, www.watergardening.com, and it's no longer a website, but at that time, I had dug a koi pond in my backyard, and the water gardening forum had one side for people to talk about their plants and their fish and water quality problems and pumps and all the stuff to do with water gardening. And they had another side to the forum that it was kind of like Facebook today. Kind of people would talk, tell funny stories, post funny pictures, talk about ups and downs of life. So I get online Saturday morning after the Friday night at the Legion, and I type up there what's going on with this boy and I, this Chicago Bulls plaque, and all the things that were taking place with us, my surgery and everything. Posted it to the water gardening forum, and get up Sunday morning and go to the computer, before we go to church, and check out the water gardening forum. And I had responses from, all over the world. I had one from Japan, I had one from New Zealand, one from England, one from Australia, I think, several from different spots in the United States. And not all of them, but quite a number of them said, "Don't you see what God's doing with you and this young boy?" They didn't know I was an atheist. They knew nothing about me. But in a flash, you've heard about people, having a near-death experience and seeing their life pass in front of their eyes. Well, that's what happened to me. I had this vision. It was like a movie. It was very realistic, real, where time and time and time again, maybe a dozen or 15 times, when I should have been hurt or killed or in huge trouble, and every single time something lucky happened. Coincidence, I attributed it to at the time, helped me out, and the bad things never happened. So, if I flip a quarter a dozen times and it comes up heads every single time, is that luck? No, it's the hand of God. I saw all these events cross my life, and my unbelief was gone. I knew that even through the years when my back had been turned toward Him, that He still had His hand upon my life and was protecting me. I'll give you just a couple of them. The first one, the most vivid one, I guess most striking or dramatic one, took place when I was about 9 or 10 years old. It was in the spring of the year, May, and I went, a couple blocks away to a little buddy's house, friend's house, and I don't know what we were going to do, but went over to his backyard. And there was his backyard, small backyard, but it was a chain link fence, surrounding his backyard. And right in the middle of the backyard was a tree. There was a small tree, I don't know, little maple tree or something. I'm not sure what it was, but there'd been a storm the night before, and laying on the ground by that tree was a robin's nest, and two baby robins were laying next to the nest. The mama robin was chirping on the fence, frantically chirping at the fence over there. And we saw these baby robins in this nest laying next to the tree, and we decided we're going to put the nest back up in the tree. So to keep the babies, they weren't totally naked, but they were, didn't have many feathers on them at all. So I took my tennies off, my black high-top red-ball jets. Took my tennies off and took the baby robins and put them in my tennies to keep them warm. While we shinnied up the tree, we put the nest back in the crotch of the tree, and we put the baby robins back in the nest. And everything's cool. Till I get back to looking in my shoes, and in my shoe, crawling in the bottom, are these little bugs, lice. I mean, that's what I thought they were, and I think today that's what they were. They were lice, bird lice, I guess. But anyway, what I had known kids at school that had lice, and that was not something you want to mess with. I mean, they had medicine, they had to wear these nylons on top of their head. Wasn't something I wanted, so I knew I didn't want lice. So I was quite a inventive, creative little kid. So I thought the best thing to do would be to go home to the shed and get the gas can, and I poured gasoline in my tennis shoes to kill the lice. It did. You ever have lice in your tennis shoes? Gasoline will take care of them. Well, I had one little problem though. I only got one pair of tennis shoes. But now they're full of gasoline. So I take my tennis shoes home, and I open up the dryer and throw my tennis shoes in. Shut the door. The gas dryer. Turn it on. My mom, she'd been over at the neighbors having coffee, and that day, neighbors knew one another and everything. She comes in. The house reeks of gasoline. Here's the dryer going, thumpity, 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 with my tennis shoes rolling around in there. I said, David, what did you do? And she opens up the dryer and takes the tennis shoes out. Well, in those days, gas appliances had a pilot light that had to be lit. They didn't have igniters. They had a pilot light that ran all the time, that as soon as you turned it on, then that pilot light lit the gas. Well, that day, luckily, the pilot light was out on that gas dryer, or I'd have been blown up. It would have exploded in my face. Lucky. The next, again, I saw like a dozen of these things, but I'll just tell you one other. 1995, my wife and I moved to a new house, a little town, Bristol, Indiana. And I had I think it was a 1984 Chevy S10 pickup truck. I think that was the year, I'm not sure. I'm not a big mechanic, but I can do little shade tree kind of things, change plugs, points, little things like that. Well, the ignition module had gone out on my Chevy S10 pickup truck. It's a little black thing. I don't know exactly what it does, but somehow, I bought an ignition module, and it was just sat right on top of the engine by the distributor cap, and I think it took off the distributor cap, I don't know, whatever, a little clip, and put this ignition module in there and put everything back together. So I took for a test drive. There was a state highway right behind my house, so I got on the state, truck started up, got on the state highway, took it about, 5-10 miles to the east to a little intersection of another state highway, and there was a BP gas station there, and I pulled into the BP gas station, probably bought a cup of coffee and maybe a box of cigars, I don't know. but my Chevy SN was an automatic on the column, you know, kind of thing. So I come out of the gas station, or out of the gas station, and I'm parked in my rear. I'm parked at the gas pumps, and so I put it in reverse and I back up, and my foot goes completely to the floor. There's nothing. I can't stop the truck at an idle, right? It's going back toward the gas pumps. I slam it into park. I get out. On the driver's side, there's this brake fluid all along the side of the truck. In the Chevy SN, there's a steel gas line that goes from the rear brakes up over the gas tank and down to the front, to the master cylinder, that had apparently corroded through. One stop before, I'm going 55 miles an hour down the highway to a busy intersection. The brake line goes out then. I have rear-ended somebody, T-boned somebody, get T-boned, go blowing through the intersection. That gas line lasted just long enough to where I'm pulling out of a parking space. Again, and again. Coincidence. The hand of God on my life. My unbelief was gone. I saw the hand of God. In upcoming videos on this YouTube channel, which if it's not already taken, I'm going to call Apostolic Testimonies. I'll share, so many other things now that God has done for my wife and I. Miraculous, amazing things. There's no doubt. I was such a fool. Amazing grace. I once was blind, but now I see. I once was blind, but now I see. I love you, my God. I thank you, my God. Thank you for watching.